Welcome to my bookcase! Hey guys, welcome to another video. As I'm sure you are all aware, here in the UK we are officially on lockdown. Basically, I'm stuck indoors and I don't hate it, but it is only the third day, so very early stages right now. So, one of the things that I assume people will be doing during this whole quarantine lockdown situation is reading. A lot more reading. I read a lot anyway, but I will definitely be reading quite a lot of my books while I am on lockdown. I've got a lot of books on my to-read list, so hopefully I can work through them, and then once I'm out of lockdown I can buy more, which is how it works, isn't it, really? Yeah, it's how it works for me anyway. That's what my brain goes to. So I thought it was the perfect opportunity to film a book collection video, showing you guys what books I own, what books I've read, what books I've got to read. Basically giving you guys some books that you could potentially read if you like the sound of it, or books that you may have but haven't read yet, or books that you have read and like, oh yeah, I remember how good that book is, let me just read it again, you know? This video is for people that love reading, but also people that want to get into reading. And it's been quite a long introduction already, so let's just jump straight into it, shall we? I think we shall. I have got a mixture of fiction books and non-fiction books, and I've also got some miscellaneous books. So we're going to start off with fiction books. The first book on my list is Sunrise at Butterfly Cove by Sarah Bennett. Yes, I have already asked my mum if she wrote this book, and she hasn't, unfortunately. Probably would have got a discount if she had, but yeah, it's not my Sarah Bennett, it's someone else. So I've yet to read this book, actually. I haven't read it yet. Mia Sutherland is hoping for a fresh start, apparently. So she's putting the past behind her and putting all of her savings into renovating a guest house in Butterfly Cove, and nothing will distract her apart from her first guest, and apparently he turns her world upside down. I do like a romantic book. You'll figure this out halfway through, like you'll be like, ah, she's a romantic kind of person, which is weird because I'm not. So the reason why I actually bought this book was because I bought the second book in the series, which you'll see after this one, and then I realised it was part of a series and I can't read that book until I got the first one. So I found it on Amazon and I bought it. That is the whole reason why I bought this book. It's a series of 3, so the second book in the series, the one that I found and bought, is Wedding Bells at Butterfly Cove. It's about a different person, it's not the same person in the first one. This is about Kiki Jackson. She goes to Butterfly Cove and yeah, things happen to Kiki Jackson. Oh, Kiki is Mia's sister, apparently. So this next series is written by Liz Braswell, and it is the Twisted Tales series. This is based on like Disney tales, and it's basically what would happen if the tales didn't have a happily ever after, if that makes any sense. The only book that isn't actually written by Liz Braswell in this collection that I have is Reflection. The lighting might be a bit weird in this video because it usually gets very weird during the afternoon. So the first book in the series is A Whole New World. Can you see that? You see the reflection, that's really annoying. This is all about Aladdin, obviously, and it says discover what would have happened if Aladdin had never found the lamp. So I've read this book, it is really good. The first half of the film happens up until they go into the cave to get the lamp. In the movie, if you've ever seen Aladdin, I guess you could say this is a spoiler, but you must have already seen it, like it's very, very well known. Jafar tries to get the lamp from Aladdin, but Abu nicks out of Jafar's hand, and so they get trapped in this cave and they have the lamp, and obviously the genie arrives. However, in this book, Abu never gets the lamp and Aladdin doesn't have the genie. It is Jafar that has the genie. So, if you know what Jafar's like, you can probably guess how this book has turned out. It's nice to have a different take on it. It's nice to twist the story and see what would happen if the villain had its way, you know? The next book in the series is Once Upon a Dream. This is based off of Sleeping Beauty. It's the same premise, but it says discover what would have happened if a kiss from the prince didn't wake Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty fell asleep and the kiss didn't wake her up, but she has to wake herself up. So she is in a dream world, but she doesn't know whether it's a dream world or the real world. She thinks it's the real world, but it's a dream world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it is really interesting and shows a lot of girl power. Actually, this book does. It shows that Sleeping Beauty has the inner power to come out of the dream world and into the real world. The next one, the third one in the series, this is actually the first one that I read, and this is As Old as Time, which is based on Beauty and the Beast. What if Belle's mother cursed the beast? Oh, I remember, yeah. So, this is a bit of a weird one in the sense that it follows the Beauty and the Beast storyline, but with additions to Belle's mother. So it kind of goes in and out of the past and the future. First chapter is the beginning of the film, but the second chapter is before the film happens. So you have some knowledge about Belle's mother. Obviously, it's not quite the happy ending that happens in the film. It's something completely different, but it's really good. I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, so if you want to read this book, stop watching. The woman that gives Adam the flower at the beginning, the one that was an old hag and then turns into a fairy or turns into this magnificent woman, she is supposedly Belle's mum in this. So yeah, if that interests you, have a read. It's very good. So the fourth book in this series I've yet to read, and it's Reflection, and apparently it was $3.99 from Sainsbury's. So obviously I've not read this book yet, but Reflection is Mulan, and it says, what if Mulan had to travel to the underworld? When Captain Shang is mortally wounded in battle, Mulan must travel to the underworld in order to save him from certain death. Interesting. We'll see what happens. It definitely seems like a mix, like a merge of Hercules and Mulan. It actually seems more like the Hercules in Once Upon a Time in the series. That's like the Zeus in that. That's what it seems like to me, like a merge. The fifth book that I have, this is the last book that I have in the series, but there are more. It's Part of Your World, obviously Little Mermaid, and it says, what if Ariel had never defeated Ursula? I've not read it yet.
It's been 5 years since the infamous sea witch defeated the Little Mermaid, taking King Triton's life in the process. Ariel is now the voiceless queen of Atlantica, while Ursula runs Prince Eric's kingdom on land.
Okay.
When Ariel discovers that her father might still be alive, she finds herself returning to a world and a prince she never imagined she would see again. Will Ariel be able to overthrow the murderous villain set on destroying her home and the world she once longed to be a part of?
Okay, so it's basically like the end of the film, pretty much. But instead of Triton defeating Ursula defeats him. I think that's actually pretty good as well. And I got this from Sainsbury's, so Sainsbury's is so good for books, but you can buy them on Amazon. So the next book I have is a classic. It is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Is that a classic? Well, I suppose it's a classic. I haven't read this in a really long time, but it's a bit of a weird book, if I remember correctly. So it's written like a diary. It starts with August 25th, 1991, and then it goes, Dear Friend, blah, 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 blah. So it's a first person thing. It's very different to any book that I've ever read before, but I remember really liking it. The next book is called You, Me and the Movies, and it's by Fiona Collins. Oh, I didn't say who the other book was by. Oh well, people already know that. So I've not read this book yet either. Basically, Arden meets Mac, and she quickly falls in love. They watched films together. Years later, she has a bad accident which makes her forget things, but she has to watch those films to remember. It's kind of like 50 First Dates. Next up is a very popular or well-known series of book, but it's also made into a film as well. Hunger Games! I have the first one, I have the second one, which is called Catching Fire, and the third one, which is Mockingjay. All three written by Suzanne Collins. These are old books. Like, I was literally a teenager when I first bought these books. I mean, I didn't buy them, obviously. I think my sister started reading them, or the first film came out, and then I found out it was a book, and so I watched the first film, and then I wanted to start reading the books. So I read the first one, and it was good. Then I started the second one, and it took me quite a long time to read it, but not that long. But I think I finished it just in time for the movie to come out. The third one, however, is my least favourite. I love the second one. I think the second one is the best one out of all of them. The third one took me so long to read. Oh my gosh. I don't remember when I started it, but I remember reading it, trying to read it on the plane going to New York, which was in 2015. I think I finally finished it when I went to France that summer, and I think I started it like a year before. I think it took me a long time to read this book. I just felt like this dragged so much. So you probably won't catch me reading these books ever again, or anytime soon, to be honest with you. Next up we have another book that I have not read yet. This is called The Day We Meet Again by Miranda Dickinson. It says their love story started with goodbye. So there's two people, Phoebe and Sam. They meet by chance at St Pancras Station and they make a promise to meet again in the same place in 12 months if they still want to be together. So yeah, I like books that kind of involve places that I know. So it looks like one of those books where each chapter is a different person. The next books that I have all have the same surname. So the first one is actually a hardback cover, and this is On the Other Side by Carrie Fletcher. I don't remember what happens. There's this old woman that dies, basically. She gets to her own private heaven, and she becomes her 27-year-old self, and the door won't open. Also, she has to unburden herself with 3 secrets that have weighed her down for over 50 years. Oh yeah, I really don't remember this. I have definitely read it. I'm going to make a list of books that I don't remember what happens in them and then add them to my reading list, because I'm going to be honest, I don't remember what happens in this. I did get it years ago though. The next books are by Carrie Fletcher's sister-in-law, say it with me, Giovanna Fletcher. So the first book of Giovanna Fletcher's that I've got is Billy and Me, obviously, the first release. Billy and Me is about a girl. She works in like a little coffee shop, and this guy comes in, called Billy obviously, and he's an actor. They fall in love. She has the spotlight on her. So obviously when someone dates a celebrity, people find out about it, and they are then in the spotlight, unfortunately, if they don't want to be. And that's that kind of like, this is the kind of situation that she has. But yeah, it's a really good read actually. Really good read. I do love it. And the second book in that series, so the sequel, I guess you could say, to that book is Always with Love. She goes with Billy to LA and she is not prepared for Hollywood and the paparazzi and everything. And so they basically have a bit of a tiff. So next up we have You're the One That I Want, and this is about a girl who's about to get married, but basically there are 2 men in her life that she loves, and basically she has to decide which one she loves. And they're all okay, so all 3 of them are best friends. I kind of remember this one, like I remember that she has 2 men to choose from, but I don't remember what happens necessarily. I need to add this to my list, I think. So the next Giovanna Fletcher book is Dream a Little Dream. This is about a girl who she knows of a guy, I think it's her brother's friend or something, but she dreams about him one day and then he actually turns up in her life again, and she basically is falling in love with him through this dream, and I think he starts working with her. I think if this is, I don't remember if this is the one I'm thinking of. No, I don't think it is. No, I feel like I'm going to have to read this one as well. I'm going to add this to my list as well. I remember it being good though. I do remember it, but I love a Giovanna Fletcher book, to be fair. The last Giovanna Fletcher book that I have, Some Kind of Wonderful. There's a girl that is about to get engaged, or at least she thinks she is. Her boyfriend tells her in a drunk manner that they can't get married, they can't be together anymore, and then she decides to discover what she's been missing, and she has to basically rediscover herself because apparently Ian changed her a lot. I remember there being a guy, yeah, he's like a friend of one of her friends, and they say don't get involved with him. It's actually really sweet. I remember it being a really sweet ending. Giovanna Fletcher then wrote a book with Tom Fletcher, her husband, called The Eve of Man. This is the first part of a trilogy. I've only recently actually read it. Basically, there's a girl called Eve. She is the first girl that's been born for a really, really long time. And so basically they try and protect her. And it's actually really sweet because there's a guy in it who, I don't want to give away too much, but he is involved in seeing Eve every day through like a hologram, and they have a really nice bond. And then they fall in love, and it is really sweet, and he helps her get out of the trap that she's in. So definitely worth a read if you like Giovanna and Tom Fletcher, or you like trilogies, or I don't know, it's just good. It's a good book. Read it, definitely read it. The next author is John Green. John Green's books actually got me back into reading fiction books. I went through a stage of not really reading fiction books and reading non-fiction books instead, but then I started reading The Fault in Our Stars, obviously, and that got me back into fiction reading, and then I read more and more of his stuff, and then that brought me to buying more and more fiction books. So, first John Green book there is Looking for Alaska. This is about a girl. Alaska gets into an accident, or she dies basically. Spoiler, I think. And this guy who meets her beforehand basically kind of falls in love with her, but becomes almost obsessed with her death and wants to try and figure out what happened and who killed her and blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. The way it's written is, so you have like a bit that says before, which means before the accident. So you go through like her being alive and, you know, what she does in this person's life really brings him out of his shell. And then you have after, which is after the accident, and that's him trying to figure out what happened and where she is and all of that. But instead of there being chapters, it's like 49 days before, 60 days after, or actually more like 6. It's quite interesting at doing it that way. It's quite original, and I liked that. I liked that aspect. Although I do like reading a chapter and then finishing a chapter. So the second one I have is An Abundance of Katherines. Now, I remember this being the second book I think I read, and I actually really like it. There's a guy that basically, his type of girl is called Catherine. He likes dating Catherines, and he's this nerd basically. He comes up with charts and graphs and calculations. He's on a mission, so it says Colin is on a mission to prove the theorem of underlying Catherine predictability. So he's got this theory of whether this girl is going to dump him, whether he is going to dump her, whether they're going to stay together, or whether they're not going to be a thing at all. It's a really funny book. The third one is Paper Towns. This has also been made into a film. It's about a girl and a boy. This girl is very unique and she goes missing, and her neighbour, who's this other guy, tries to find her basically. I preferred the book to the film, however the ending I have an issue with. I remember not liking the ending of the book, and in turn I disliked the ending of the film as well. I think I didn't like the ending of the film more than I didn't like the ending of the book. I just remember being really disappointed with the book, with the ending, sorry, like I didn't like it, and I was like, no, I want something else, you know? The next one is Let It Snow. Apparently it was buy one get one half price. This is by 3 different authors, John Green, Maureen Johnson and Lauren Miracle. Basically there's 3 different storylines, 3 different people, and I think they all kind of connect at some point. Basically the 3 stories collide, the strangers cross paths in several different ways. I remember this being a difficult read because there were so many stories, so I was like, I don't know who's writing this bit. It does say actually at the top, it says who was writing what. Maybe I should add it to my list. This next one has got 2 authors again. It's John Green and David Levi Than. This is called Will Grayson, Will Grayson. And basically there are 2 different Will Graysons and they cross paths. They have 2 very different lives. I think they like become friends or something. I remember it being good though. It's a good book. This next one is one that everyone knows. The Fault in Our Stars. I read this in a day and I bawled my eyes out. Everyone should know what happens in The Fault in Our Stars. It's about, I think they both have cancer. One of them recovers from it, but then it comes back. It's very sad and it's cute. It's a cute book. It's a cute story, but it's also very sad. So if you're looking for a cry, this is definitely the book to do it. I don't tend to cry when I'm reading books, but this one made me bawl my eyes out. So, and the most recent John Green book is Turtles All the Way Down. This is about a girl, and she basically, whether they're neighbours, I don't think they are neighbours. They used to be best friends, but she has this guy that they used to be best friends, and basically his dad goes missing and she works with him to try and find his dad. But yeah, it's a good like investigation kind of book. But yeah, it's good. It's a good book. So this next book is called The Lie Tree, and it's by Frances Harding. This is not the type of book that I would read. Someone at uni told me about this book and they suggested that I read it. It is a good book. It's just not my kind of book. It's there's like a girl that tries to figure out truths about things, about her father and family and stuff, and it is good, but I'm more of a romantic kind of girl and there's no romance really in this. There's a lot of action, I think, and a lot of mystery, so if you're into that you'd like it, but I'm not really, like, I'm into it but also not enough. So yeah, I probably wouldn't read this again, but it's not a bad book, it's just my own preference. So the next author we have is Ali Harris, and I've got 3 of her books. The first one is Miracle on Regent Street. This is like a Christmas book, and basically she works at this store. This store is like, it's at the risk of being sold. So it's one of London's most elegant department store. Again, London, a place that I know, I love it. And basically she has to try and reverse the store's fortunes by the December 26th. She works there, but she doesn't work on the shop floor. She's like, she works with deliveries, so she does like orders and stuff. She takes orders. She works in the warehouse basically, back room. But she goes around and tidies and makes all these departments better and makes them look really good, but no one knows who's doing it. So it's very interesting. It is a really good book. Obviously there's some romance in there as well. Oh yeah, there's a guy that is really sweet to her, but then she falls for someone else, and you need to read it. It's a really, really good book. Really good. So these next two ones I've never read before. So we've got The First Last Kiss and Written in the Stars. First Last Kiss says, how do you cope when you know that every kiss is a countdown to goodbye? Ooh, steady on.
This is the story of Ryan and Molly and how they fell in love and were torn apart. First time Molly kissed Ryan, she knew they'd be together forever. 6 years and thousands of kisses later, she's married to the man she loves. But today Molly realises how many of those kisses she wasted because the future holds something which neither of them could have predicted.
I have a feeling I only bought this because I wanted the other one and it was like a 2 for $10 offer. It sounds like someone's about to die, so it might be a sad one. And the Written in the Stars one, it says, have you ever wondered what if?
What if you'd taken that other job, gone on a date with that sweet guy, moved to a different city? Would an alternative life path have led to a happier ending? Now imagine if you could have taken both paths.
So, someone called B, she slips while walking down the aisle on her wedding day and is momentarily knocked unconscious. Her world splits in a flash and she lives 2 separate parallel lives. In one, B flees back down the aisle and out of the church, in the other she glides blissfully towards Adam. Ooh, that's interesting. So basically in one life she marries him and the other she doesn't. That does sound pretty interesting. I'm excited to read that. More excited to read The Written in the Stars than The First Last Kiss. But we'll see what they're like, we'll see. The next book holds a special place in my heart. This is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I read this book in sixth form, English Literature and Language, A-levels. I've basically got, like, there are several parts where I've underlined things and written notes and highlighted. This was my mum's book. So when I first started reading it, they were like, either get yourself a book and then you can write notes in it, or read one of ours but you can't write in it. And I really wanted to write in it, so I borrowed my mum's. And she didn't want it back, surprisingly. Don't know why. I've literally like defaced it completely. But yeah, I couldn't throw it away because it holds a special place in my heart, and it's actually a really good book. I haven't read it since. So the next author is Sophie Kinsella, and I've got My Not So Perfect Life. In this it says, Katie Brenner has the perfect life, a flat in London, a glamorous job and a super cool Instagram feed, right? In my head, when I first bought this, I was like, so she's basically Insta famous and she makes her life look so much better than it actually is. But that's not what it is. She just has a cool Instagram feed. I don't think many people follow her. It just wasn't what I was expecting it to be honest with you. It was good. So yeah, her life isn't as good as what she puts on Instagram, but she gets the sack and she has to move back home. Oh yeah! But then her family owns a glamping holiday business, and she uses her career, which is like graphic design or like advertising, to advertise this glamping holiday thing. And yeah, things happen. Apart from me misinterpreting what I thought would happen, it's actually a really good book and it's definitely worth the read. So next we have got some absolute classics. We've got The Chronicles of Narnia. You're right there. So there are 7 books in The Chronicles of Narnia. Can you see that? You can kind of see that. The sun's kind of in the way. You have The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair and The Last Battle. I have read all of these. It's actually a really good series altogether. I definitely obviously prefer the first 2 and the 4th one and the 5th one. The other 3 are alright. If I remember correctly, I just felt like they dragged a bit and they weren't needed. Basically, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe came first, and then The Prince Caspian, then Voyage of the Dawn Treader, hence why those 3 films are in the order that they are. Then it was The Last Battle, I think, and then they went from like The Magician's Nephew, The Horse and the Boy, The Silver Chair, blah blah blah, they kind of did that. I don't know exactly. The chronological order is different to the release date order, and I read it in the order that it is here. Magician's Nephew is before The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and then The Horse and the Boy is after The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but before the kids go back into the wardrobe afterwards, so during their like reign. And then obviously you've got Prince Caspian and the rest. It is a really good series and I do suggest reading all of them. I'm trying to see where you can see it the most because obviously the light is in the way. So moving on from the classics, we've got a Jill Mansell book, and this is You you and me always. So her mum dies and she's always been cared for by her friends. The chance comes to meet the man who was the love of her mother's life, so she takes it and she gets to know him. This isn't what I thought it was, or is it? Oh yeah, no it is. Right, so there's this guy who I think is a celebrity. He comes into the village and I don't remember where he lives, but he basically stays at someone's house to hide, and they find each other, and then I think they fall in love, if I remember correctly. But obviously the opposites, like the rest of that story, is that she meets her mother's old love. There are a few things that I remember happening, but I don't remember exactly. Maybe I should add this to my list. I'm going to add it to my list. So the next one I haven't read yet, and this is called Sleeps in Manhattan by Sarah Morgan. The only reason why I bought this book is because I think I was buying another book on Amazon, and not for me, for a friend, and I wanted to get free delivery, so I found the cheapest book I could. And actually I'm glad I did, because this is part of a series all about New York. It's all set in New York, this whole series, so I love New York, if you didn't know that. I'm really excited to read it. It says Paige has ticked off every box on her perfect New York life checklist except one, the ultimate New York romance. Oh, she has a crush on her brother's best friend. So this is going to be interesting. I just love New York, and I love stories in New York, so I'm very excited to read this. And of course get the rest of the series, of course. Now this is a big collection of books. Right, so you can see all of these books, yeah? All of these up until here. These are all Jojo Moyes books, and you may be able to guess, but I'm a huge fan of her books. I found out about Jojo Moyes when people were raving about Me Before You. I was adamant that I did not want to read that book first. I wanted to read her first one first. I don't know why, to be honest with you. However, this kind of took me into a spiral of buying every Jojo Moyes book there is. There are only two that I haven't got. So the first one is Sheltering Rain. This was the first book that she wrote, and basically there's this girl. She has to leave London to go to her grandparents because I think her mum's struggling at home or something like that. Basically, she's reunited with her grandparents that she hasn't seen for a really long time. It uncovers some dark secrets that they've had for years. She has to look after her grandparents as well because they're quite ill, or at least one of them is. I think this book also goes back and forth, if I remember correctly. Quite a lot of Jojo Moyes' books go back and forth, which I don't mind, but I know some people do have an issue with that. It flips back, so you read about the story of the grandparents, their love story, whilst reading their granddaughter's story and their daughter's story and stuff like that. It's good, and I'm glad I read it first, because it is a good book. The next one is called Foreign Fruit. I have not read this yet. I got this for Christmas last year. So these two people changed their house up. What ensues at the house has tragic and long-lasting consequences for all. And then 50 years on, it's being renovated, and then those secrets come out. Sounds interesting. The next one is The Ship of Brides. This is based on, well, it's based on a true story, but obviously the actual contents of the book isn't. So it is fiction, but the Ship of Brides actually happened. So I don't know exactly what happened, but there was a ship of brides going to Australia or from Australia, one of those, to be reunited with men they were marrying, and that was an actual thing that happened. But basically Jojo Moyes has created stories for some characters, so she's created characters. I think there are 4 in there, and all 4 of them have different storylines. One of them's pregnant. I think one of them tries to bring their dog on board. One of them has a drinking problem, I think. Oh yeah, I think one of them falls in love with the captain, if I remember correctly. But it's very dramatic, and I actually really, really like this book as well, so it's a must read. Definitely read it. Okay, so the next up is my favourite Jojo Moyes book, Silver Bay. Can you see it? Oh no! Don't worry guys, I saved it, I got it. It's fine. Well, it's about a family basically, and they live at this hotel in Australia, I think it is, and this girl grows up with these people that they go out on tours of the water to see dolphins, that kind of thing, as part of the hotel's package. She's not allowed in the water or so. There's some restrictions she has, and the mother won't say what, But the mother basically falls in love with this guy who tries to take over the hotel, and she doesn't know it. And then you basically find out why there was that restriction, and then obviously there's the drama with this guy that's trying to take the hotel, and it's very interesting. It's very dramatic, but the ending is great. So next up is Night Music. This is about a family that moves into a house once the husband dies, and she has a lot of debt, and basically they move into this abandoned house and they don't really know how to cope, and it's all quite sad and depressing. But there's a guy that basically falls in love with her. There's a lot of falling in love in these books, quite honestly. They try and renovate the house, but more and more money gets piled on, and then there's another house next door that want to try and buy the house, so they're trying to manipulate this person. It's dramatic, again, obviously. It's nice. It's a good book. Definitely read it. The Horse Dancer is next. This is about a girl who is... Well, there's a guy that teaches his granddaughter, to horse ride. She is left to fend for herself when he gets ill or dies or something. She can't ride her horse and she gets sad about it, something like that, and she runs away, I think. All I really remember is horse riding, and then the girl rides a horse to the borders of France, or to France, to take part in a competition, in a horse riding competition. This one is next, The Last Letter from Your Lover. You can't see these. So this has two different stories. There is a girl in 1960 who writes these letters to another man who she's not married to. In present day, this other woman is a journalist, and she has to try and find something to keep her job or something like that, and she finds these letters, and then she creates articles about them, and I think eventually she finds one of the persons, or two of them, or both of them. It basically goes between the two, and she has her own struggles, and it's really interesting to see both stories pan out and to see how they're both connected together. It's cute, and it's a nice cover. Look, it's just really nice and aesthetically pleasing, and I really like it. So now we have the Me Before You series. We have Me Before You, After You, and what I'm reading currently is Still Me. Me Before You is about a guy that needs looking after, and he has quite a hard life, and he falls in love with his carer, but it's from the carer's point of view, and she's a bit eccentric, and she's amazing, she's great. After You is the sequel. Spoiler, he dies at the end of this one. It is quite sad, very sad. This one, he has a daughter, apparently. Lou, who is the carer, looks after her for a little while. She has a job in an airport, I remember that, and her life isn't the best. It kind of goes downhill, and then she finds a guy, and basically she falls in love with another person. And Still Me, I'm still reading it, but it's about her new job that she gets at the end of the second one in New York, and yeah, she so far has seen a guy that looks exactly like the first guy from the first book. So then the next Jojo Moyes book we have is The Girl You Left Behind. So there was an artist, and he leaves his wife to go fight at the front. The town that they live in fell into German hands, and this woman has to risk everything to save her family. Years later, century later, the portrait that the French artist painted is in someone else's house, and basically it's this whole story behind of this painting, people trying to get it back to their original owners, because over the wartime obviously paintings were stolen, and then they were trying to find the homes for it based on relations. So you get two stories with this, which obviously lead to one, so it's good. The 1+1, bit of a different one from Jojo Moyes. Basically there's this family, they're quite low on money, they're not the wealthiest people, but the girl has to go do a maths competition to get a scholarship to get into school or something like that. And I just remember them going on a road trip with a dog, and there's some romantic things in there as well, with a guy that tries to help them out. It's funny though, I remember it being funny, it's a good read. Yeah, it's actually one of my favourite Jojo Moyes books. I think this is probably my second favourite, so there you go. This is Paris for One and Other Stories. This has got several stories in it, and it's just a collection of stories, basically. Next up is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. This is actually a film on Netflix now. I didn't know that. There's these two people that have a really hard time. They meet, they have a fun journey together, but it doesn't end very well. If I remember correctly, it is a good book. It's very sad, and it might be triggering to some people. It's a very teenage book. I would probably not read it now. Don't really have any interest in watching the movie either. Obviously at the time of buying it I was a teenager and I was into these kind of books, so it is a good one, but as a 22-year-old I wouldn't choose to read it again. Same kind of preference, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I mean, it's what it says, isn't it? A girl goes to university and she writes fan fiction and she falls in love with her roommate's boyfriend, and she's a twin, so her twin sister has a great life. She's a bit of a geek. As an older teen, I loved it. As a 22-year-old, wouldn't read it again. The one thing I didn't like about this book actually is that I think after every chapter they put bits of the book that this character's writing, the fan fiction that this character's writing, they put bits of it in it, and I just wasn't interested in that. So next up, we've actually got a series of unfortunate events. Now, I've only got one of this book. I've only got The Bad Beginning, one of this book, one of this collection. I've got the first one. I've wanted to read this whole series for such a long time. I remember my best friend Kaya having it growing up, and I think she must have got them from the library, or whether she owned them, I don't know. And I love the series of unfortunate events. Like, I love the film, I love the Netflix series, so I'm really excited to actually read the books. Then we have some more hardback books. These books aren't on my shelf. They are not on display. Not for any reason, just because they just didn't fit anywhere, and I had to eliminate some books to my wardrobe. The Girl Online set by Zoe Sugg. I would not read these again because I'm 22 and they're just not written for me. I did enjoy them, but how old was I? I think I was 17 or something. No, I think I was younger. I don't remember. But even reading them when I got them, I felt like they were written for much younger than me. Not much younger, but a little bit younger than me. Basically, it's a story about a girl called Penny, and she falls in love with this musician, and she has a blog. And yeah, then her life kind of tumbles and things happen, and yeah, she struggles with mental health, I think, and friendships and things like that, if I remember correctly. I'm keeping them obviously because I don't like throwing away books. I think as a teenager you would read this and love it, but I was a little bit older than a teenager, more into my young adult life, so yeah, wouldn't read these again. Right, moving on to page 2. So the first one is The Longest Holiday. Such a good book. This woman's getting married, but her husband cheated on her, and so she escapes to Florida's Key West, sorry, and she basically meets this guy who is a bit of a rebel, and she basically falls in love with him. He's a bit of a troublemaker kind of thing, bad at commitment, but yeah, it's basically their story together and whether they work or not, and her not wanting to go home and face reality. It's all very dramatic, but I love that kind of thing, so it's really good. Definitely one of my favourites. Next one, The One We Fell in Love With. This is a bit of a weird one. We've got Phoebe, Eliza and Rose, and they're all sisters. Basically, all three of these girls, sisters, they have different lives, but they all have one thing in common, which is Angus, who is the guy that they all fell in love with at some point in their lives. Basically, he was their neighbour. It's a good ending. It is good. I think there is a sad moment in here as well, where someone might die. Next one is definitely the weirdest one, is The Last Piece of My Heart. This is about an author, like a journalist. She has ambitions to turn a quirky relationship blog into a book, but no one is that interested until she gets propositioned to carry on writing a book written by an author that sadly died. Basically, she takes it up and she goes to this author's house. She stays there while she does her research, and she falls in love with the woman's husband. It's all very weird. It's a weird thing. It would be romantic and it would be cute if it wasn't for the fact that the woman had just died, you know? Bit of a weird one. I would read it again, but it's just a bit weird. These next two I have not read yet, so we have got 5 Years From Now and If You Could Go Anywhere. 5 years from now, two people meet as children, then they find each other 5 years later, their bond is rekindled and new feelings take hold. But once again they separate. For the next 2 decades, fate brings Nell and Van together every 5 years. Okay, so every 5 years they see each other again, but they don't know whether they'll be together. Very interesting, okay. I like it. And If You Go Anywhere, Angie's always wanted to travel, but at 27 she has barely stepped outside the small mining town where she was born. Grandma passes away, she has no remaining family, ready to start her own adventures. She finds a letter revealing the address of the father she never knew and realises her journey must begin in Italy. Interesting! Oh, okay, so my last fiction books, I know it's been a wild journey, been a long one as well, are my Mary Poppins books. That made a really weird noise. So I've got the whole set of Mary Poppins books because I'm a nerd and I love those kind of things. I really want the Winnie the Pooh books, but we'll see if I get them or not, I don't know. So we've got the first Mary Poppins, we've got Mary Poppins Comes Back, Mary Poppins Opens the Door, Mary Poppins in the Park, and Mary Poppins in Cherry Tree Lane and The House Next Door. The first two are stories that are like consistent. So the first one is the story of Mary Poppins when she first comes. The second one, Mary Poppins Comes Back, almost like the two different movies, but not. And then the other three are like a collection of stories within the time that Mary Poppins was with the families. One thing that I noticed with all of the stories in these books is that the first film doesn't follow this book and the second film doesn't follow this book. There are so many stories in all of these books that appear in the films. The stories in the films aren't necessarily exactly the same in here, but there are some like mentionings of them. They're very interesting. If you're a Disney nerd like me, definitely read them. So that's all of my fiction books. So we're just going to jump straight into the non-fiction books and leave it as that. First author we have is Julie Andrews. Fitting, we went from Mary Poppins to Julie Andrews. That's great. We've got Home, which is about her life growing up, her career, like starting of her career. And it stops when she goes to LA to film Mary Poppins. And this is the second one. Homework is a memoir of my Hollywood years, so when she lived in Hollywood and the jobs that she did then. So I'm excited to read it. This is very good, very good. The next book is Ant and Dec. Ooh, what a lovely pair. I bought this years ago. It was during my stage of not reading fiction books. And it's good. It tells you about like growing up, what they were like, them on Biker Grove, and then obviously the start of their career basically and their duo. It's good if you're a fan of Ant and Dec. The next one is Ellen DeGeneres. I went through a stage of loving her. I still do. Me and my mum used to watch her show all the time. I got this book and it's interesting. It's not like a autobiography. It has got some of her thoughts in it. It's funny. It's an Ellen kind of book. This is the next book. This is the Diana de la Garza book called Falling with Wings. This is Demi Lovato's mother. She wrote this book. I cannot wait to read it. Cannot wait. We've then got Dodie, Secrets for the Mad. This is written by Dodie Clark, aka Doddle on YouTube. I love her. I loved her growing up as a teenager and a uni, and when I heard she was writing a book, I thought, let's buy it. What I love about this actually is that she has little pages like that where she has her song lyrics and stuff, and it's really nice. It's a lovely book. The next one is the other Carrie Hope Fletcher book that I bought, the first one. This is All I Know Now. This is like an autobiography, but more an advice book, and I love it. I really do. I think at the stage I was at in my life, like I needed it, and it's nice and it's funny and light-hearted, and this is one of the reasons why I love Carrie Hope Fletcher. So there we go. So this next one is one that I won't be using for a little while, but this is A Dream Guide by Adam Hatton for Disney World. My friend's actually due to go to Disney World this year. Whether she'll be able to, who knows. This basically is basically what it says. It's a dream guide to Disney World. It has tips and advice and information. So this next one is called The Friendship Group by Ella Kasparowicz. My friend Hayley gave it to me for my birthday last year, and it's just a fun little book talking about the different kind of friendships there are and the different people in your friendship group. There's like a bit that says what squad are you most like. There's so much in here, but it is really, really fun. This is the next one in my list. This is Staying Strong by Demi Lovato. I don't think I've fully read it all the way through because I want to do it day by day. But obviously I'm a massive fan of Demi Lovato, so even if I don't read it, I've got it. So I'm supporting her either way. So next up, the McFly book. Who knew McFly had an autobiography? I didn't. Until I got it, obviously. It's about how they started, what they were like. It actually goes through some struggles that I never even knew that they had. It's like a conversation between all of them, so they all talk about what happened. And there's pictures as well, and I'm a big McFly fan, so it was during my time of autobiographies as well, so of course I was going to get it. This one you have already heard me talk about, so I'm not going to talk too much. This is The Enchanted Places by Christopher Milne, aka Christopher Robin. Basically about him growing up and the effects that it had on him, what his actual parents were like, what his childhood was like. But I have done another video on the review of this, so I'll link it down below. This book is not on my shelf either. This is Binge by Tyler Oakley. I actually accidentally got this. I didn't ask for it. My sister got 2 copies for Christmas once. My mum asked me if I wanted the other copy, so I got it. It's actually a good read, like things that I didn't know about him and stuff. Yeah, I'm not like, I was a Tyler Oakley fan. I'm not so much anymore. That's just my mum telling me that to make a cup of tea, so sorry about that. We have got this odd one called Ice Cream for Breakfast. I didn't realise that it was all about like your life and want to make your adult life more curious, fun and carefree. But it's actually quite an entertaining book. Whether I would read it again, I'm not sure. The last non-fiction book I have is the 5 Seconds of Summer Let's Make a Band official book. I got this for my birthday a few years ago, quite a long time ago. But yeah, I was pretty obsessed with 5 Seconds of Summer. And to be honest, I still love their stuff now. They've definitely evolved and changed over time and I really enjoy them. I really do. But I was a massive fan, so of course I was going to be like, I want their book. It's not on the shelf either, sorry. Sorry boys. That's it for my fiction and non-fiction books. But there are 2 books that I want to show you before I leave. We've got the Pixar Character Encyclopedia, which my dad got out from the loft the other day, and my Disney book. Both of these are great. So the Disney book is like almost like an autobiography or a biography. It goes into like Disney, it goes into the stories, it goes into the information of what happened and the concept art. There's a lot more information about everything and it's got timelines of the films and everything like that. This book is slightly different though because it is literally an encyclopedia of Pixar characters. So like you go through it and it has an encyclopedia of like every Pixar character that you can imagine. Obviously this came out years ago, 2013, so there's been a few more since then. But it's actually really funny, really interesting, and yeah, it's just cool to be honest with you. Finally, we're done. If you stuck around to the very end, well done. Well done. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Press the subscribe button down below. Sorry it's so long. Anyway, I'm gonna leave because I've been here a while and I'm really hot because of this sun. So, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye!